Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Pozos, and here with me is Omar Pozos, co-host, husband, and birthday boy this week.
It's my birthday week. That's what I've been telling everybody this week.
Yeah, literally anything he wants me to do, anything he wants in general. It's just like, it's my birthday week.
But do you do it?
Of course.
Yeah, okay, whatever. All right, let's dive in. What you got for us today?
Yeah, well, on last week's episode, I know we talked a little bit about some of the things that we've been struggling with within our own journeys, just like within our health and fitness, some areas where we're like, oh, that's a habit we need to work on a little bit more. This is an area where maybe we're dropping the ball. Just kind of brought some awareness to some of the things that we felt like we've maybe been riding the struggle bus on a little bit. But I wanted to make this week's episode a little bit more actionable, kind of going off of what we talked about last week. I wanted to give a more specific list of essentially ways to speed up your fat loss journey. So if you are in a place where you're wanting to lean out, maybe for summer or maybe just in general, maybe you're wanting to, kind of end that yo-yo dieting roller coaster you've been stuck on your whole life and you're like, I'm ready to do this the right way. Tell me how, Vanessa, this episode is for you. We're gonna really dive into just my top do's and don'ts for if you want to speed up your fat loss.
Oh, I like this one. Would it be fair to say too, even for the people that are like plateaued or been stuck for a little while, would this help too?
Absolutely. Yeah. This is probably going to reveal some things that maybe you are realizing that, oh, I'm actually not doing absolutely the best I can. I'm not, crossing all my T's and dotting all my I's. So that's where hopefully we'll help you have some aha moments here.
I'm excited. And the other thing I'm excited about that we'll get to at the end of the episode is we have something so cool that honestly, it's my favorite thing that we get to do as a company and as a whole. So for those that are listening, stay tuned because we have a really, really cool opportunity that I think you guys are going to want to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's dive in here. I want to start with my don'ts. So if you want to speed up your fat loss, here's what not to do. Number one, don't skip breakfast or miss meals. I mean, that one I think is something that I know I've been guilty of in the past, where when I wanted to lose weight, going about it maybe the wrong way, I was like, well, if I just eat less meals, if I just don't eat breakfast, that's going to make me lose fat faster, right? Doesn't really work that way. It tends to just screw up your metabolism, screw up your hormones, and make fat loss a whole lot harder.
Can I ask one quick question on that one? Because I know people are going to be like, well, Vanessa, I'm not hungry in the mornings, or, it's hard for me to eat in the mornings. What would you say to those people? Or why is this such a big one on the don't do this list?
Yeah, well, if you're not hungry in the mornings, that just means that you've trained your metabolism to slow down to where it's not expecting food in the mornings because that's what you've trained it to expect. So this is totally normal, completely, reversible. This is something we fix for a lot of the women that come into our program who feel that way. And you'll find that once you kind of push past that, which we have a method of doing so within our 90-day metabolic reset, you'll find that you feel tremendously better and you get much better fat loss results by actually eating those consistent meals.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So that's my first one, pretty big one there. Second one, we kind of talked about this in our podcast last week, but this
I'm a little ashamed of this one.
This is eyeballing or guesstimating how much you're eating. So, we are obviously, we're big fans personally of tracking our food, tracking macros. I think it's the most effective and most efficient way to make sure that you are actually burning body fat, not just losing weight on the scale. However, if you are tracking in a way where you're not really actually portioning out your meals correctly, you're not learning to weigh or measure or use these different types of tools, you're just kind of eyeballing, you're just kind of guessing what's on your plate, you're actually not really tracking effectively. And like we were sharing, that's where we found that we were starting to gain some weight. And we're like, you know what? We're not really being honest with ourselves here with our tracking.
Yeah. Well, I think the important part there too is you may think that you're in a caloric deficit, or you may think that you're, taking in X amount of calories per day. But then when you start actually tracking stuff and you put, when you dial things in, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that was an extra 100 to 300 calories. And that's what can make a big difference.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so definitely, eyeballing, guesstimating, that definitely a don't if you want to speed up your fat loss. Next one here, hit your calorie goal using treat foods or fun foods, as we like to call them as well. So, if you are really just primarily leaning on convenient foods, treat foods, fun foods. It's not to say that those can't be beneficial. It's not to say that you can't have those things. But if that is the majority of your diet that you're using to hit your macros, your calories, you're going to be cutting yourself short because you're probably not getting as many micronutrients, you're probably just not fueling your metabolism and feeding your gut as optimally as possible. So
and you're probably going to be hungrier throughout the day too, right?
Yes, great point as well. A lot of these
Thanks,
a lot of these treat foods, fun foods, they're not going to give you as much like bang for your buck when it comes to calories. You consider, like, simple example, eating an apple versus eating a cupcake. Very, very different calories, same size. So if I'm eating the apple, I could, have 90 calories from that apple versus eating the cupcake that might be, 300, 400 calories. You're going to feel quite a bit different from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next one on my list here, working out inconsistently. This one is one I've been guilty of over the last 6 months or so as well. This is something that, a lot of people can be guilty of as well. And this is not to shame anybody. Like, that's why I want to be honest too, if I'm not perfect with this list by any means, but the goal is to help you maybe open your eyes to some areas that you can improve upon if you want to get better, faster results. So finding some form of consistency with your workout regimen is huge. If you can't get to the gym, think about how you could incorporate working out at home. If you are struggling with motivation, think about ways that we can make your workouts more fun. This is where working with a coach can be incredibly beneficial to really help you figure out what's going to actually work best for you and your lifestyle.
Yeah. Can I add something really quick on that one? I think the consistency part, that's what gets a lot of people, because they go balls to the wall, and then next thing you know, it's 3-4 weeks and you're like, I haven't been able to do my 2-hour session at the gym. It's like, okay, no big deal. So let's get honest. Let's get realistic. If it's 30 minutes, if it's 15 minutes, twice a week, once a week, whatever it is, but as long as we can stay consistent, that's better than the, 2-week push and then 4 weeks off kind of thing, and just a lot of inconsistency there, right?
Exactly. Consistency is going to get you better results than intensity just in spurts, essentially. Yep. So consistency over intensity with our workouts. Next, over-caffeinating and consequentially sleeping poorly when we are over-caffeinating. That one's going to be huge on affecting your fat loss. And this is something that I actually remember early in my days. I remember hearing like, well, caffeine can actually help you burn fat faster. Like, even caffeine pills was a big fad for a long time. And
I think I tried those and it was not good.
But I mean, caffeine in and of itself, like, there could be, like, we could deduce, okay, yes, maybe you will lose more weight by caffeinating more temporarily, because what does caffeine do? Gives you energy. You're going to be like moving around more. You're going to be more jittery. Like, you might actually be raising your, essentially like your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, a little bit there just because you are moving a little bit more. However, that's only going to last for so long. Eventually, now the caffeine starts to have a lot of negative, really detrimental effects. And for women specifically, this happens very, very quickly. So you'll find yourself, as you are having a lot of caffeine, that now you start to actually have lower energy. You start to be even more and more reliant on the caffeine. You find yourself not really losing fat. You're just getting more puffy. Your sleep feels just like not as restful. Even if you aren't waking up during the night or you aren't having trouble falling asleep, you might find yourself in the morning feeling just like you could keep sleeping. Very, very common when we are over caffeinating. So that's why that will absolutely affect your fat loss journey. Next, staying up scrolling on your phone all night.
Who does that, Vanessa?
Looking at me.
It's my birthday week. You can't say anything.
I like how you just completely deflected over to me on that one.
I mean, you know what? Tell us more about it.
Yes. So staying up scrolling on your phone all night, like why might this be an issue when it comes to fat loss? I mean, several reasons. So if we are looking at our phone, we're essentially consuming a lot of blue light, which is basically having the effect of basically like if you are staring at the sun during the day, not even staring at the sun, but you're just getting sunlight on your face during the day.
I can picture myself just staring at the sun, like my eyes.
Yeah, don't stare at the sun. Bad advice. Will also negatively affect fat loss because you will probably have a lot of issues.
All right.
But no, anyway, so looking at your screen, you're getting a lot of blue light in your eyes. Blue light is essentially like the brightest of light. So it's even brighter than the sun. The purpose essentially of sunlight on our face is it helps set our circadian rhythm. It helps tell your body what time of day it is, which helps your body produce the hormones that it should be producing at that time of day to help you be more awake or more sleepy, essentially. So if now at nighttime, you're looking at this blue light, you're consuming this very, very bright light that's even brighter than the sun, you're essentially just confusing your body on a very physiological level of what time of day it is, which is going to affect your hormone production, specifically cortisol, very, very popular hormone on social media right now. Everybody is talking about how their cortisol might be affecting their fat loss journey. And this is something that may be affecting your cortisol, which therefore is definitely going to affect your fat loss.
Yeah.
Next, eating out daily. So this one is big. You could be perfectly tracking, doing everything you can, like really crossing all your T's, dotting all your I's. But if you're eating out at restaurants or picking up food for a lot of meals, you are inherently going to be probably over-consuming calories because there's a lot of hidden things in the meals that we eat out.
Like what? What would you say is a hidden thing?
Oils, butters, like that's where...
Seasonings.
Yeah. Even like, if you're getting a bowl with chicken and rice and veggies, you might be like, oh my God, that's such a simple, very nutrient dense meal. And you are correct. However, when you're getting it from a restaurant, the rice is probably cooked in oil. It's probably not dry cooked like you might be more so cooking it at home. The chicken might be more like chicken thighs instead of chicken breasts, which might be what you eat more at home. And it's probably cooked in some butter, some oil. Sometimes even there's like seasonings with sugar mixed in. And then the vegetables themselves, typically those have a lot of butter and oil on them as well. So it's a lot of things that like you can't even see necessarily are going to be going into your food when you're eating out. So if you're doing that daily, you are very, very, very likely over consuming calories, consuming more than you think you are, at least.
And I like the word daily too, because it's not to say that you can't eat out while you're trying to lose weight, but it's just more so we got to kind of pick and choose some battles, because if you're, based on some of the things you're saying, like, if we're not hitting calorie targets consistently, we're working out inconsistently, eating out daily, staying up, scrolling on your phone all night, there's just so many variables that we need to adjust and get a little bit better at to really see that fat loss speed up a little bit more, right?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people choose to eat out for convenience. But I think we can, and this is something we do a lot within our coaching as well, is helping people find convenience with making their meals at home. Because we can make it even more convenient than eating out or picking up food at a restaurant. But let's leave the eating out and picking food up for socialization, for connection purposes, and really kind of differentiate those two things.
Yeah.
Next on my list of don'ts, tracking weight rarely or inconsistently.
You're talking your body weight on this one.
Yes, tracking your body weight rarely or inconsistently. I think this one, I will say kind of like a little bit of caveat here, kind of depends on the person, because if we have a really like psychologically negative relationship with the scale, it might be beneficial to not really use the scale or intentionally use it inconsistently and really focus on other metrics like photos, measurements, how our clothes fitting. However, the most effective way when we're specifically working on fat loss to manipulate, essentially, or not manipulate, but to utilize the scale is to actually weigh on it very consistently. So that might look like every single morning, you just make it part of your morning routine. You just step on the scale every morning, same kind of time, same circumstances, just when I wake up, go to the bathroom, and I step on the scale before I put my clothes on. Like, it can be that simple, because then you're just collecting more data across the whole, where when you look at all of the data, you can essentially like cut out the ones that are the outliers, because you're going to always have those spikes up and down. And you want to kind of look at like, what is the trend? What is the average? If I put this on a graph, is it trending up, down, or kind of straight across? And if we're inconsistently weighing in, if we're just like, one day I weigh in here on this Monday, I weigh in, 2.5 weeks later, now it's a different phase of my cycle, and now it's a Wednesday, and then I weigh in the next week and it's Saturday, you're probably gonna have these like weird spikes up and down, and you aren't really gonna be able to tell is my weight actually going down or not, and it can just kind of mess with your head essentially.
Yeah. And if anything, it confuses the heck out of you, I think, because you're like, what the heck is going on? My body's doing this, my body's doing that. But when you have a little bit more data, you're able to make a less emotional decision, I guess you can call it.
Yeah. And it's hard to do this stuff without a coach. So if you're on your own and you're having to look at this data that can feel very emotionally triggering, no matter what, it can be really hard. So making sure that you are doing this in a way that is consistent and intentional will at least help you through those emotions if you're doing this on your own. Next on my list of don'ts is barely drinking any water. This one is huge. I feel like a lot of people aren't even aware of how much water they're actually drinking. So just making sure that we are drinking plenty of water, really measuring the amount of water we're drinking is going to be huge for fat loss as well.
I think my biggest hack on that one, and correct me if I'm wrong, or I guess tell me your thoughts, but I think my biggest hack on that one is just getting a container that is either like a half a gallon or a full gallon container, so that way by the end of the day, you're like, all right, did I do it or did I not? And it's very, what is it? Binary? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, like you either did or you didn't.
You did or you didn't, right?
Yeah.
Because like even I was talking to my mom and she was like, yeah, well, I drink X amount of water bottles. I think that's a gallon. I think that's not a gallon. I'm like, why don't you just get a container and you can just look at the end of the day, did we do it or did we not do it, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, not drinking enough water is definitely going to be a don't if we want to lose fat. Water is going to help with the fat loss process on that very chemical level of actually helping your body burn fat, but it's also going to help with just making sure that you feel full and satisfied. We tend to eat more when we're actually dehydrated. Next on this list of don'ts, minimally eating fruits and veggies. We talked about don't let your diet be primarily treat foods and fun foods. So almost like the flip side of that is, or really kind of along those same lines, would be just not eating very many fruits and veggies. You're not going to feel very full. You're not going to feel very satisfied over the course of the day. And you're not going to ultimately give your body enough fiber and enough micronutrients to support your hormones and support your metabolism so that you can lose fat as quickly as possible. Next is taking off on the weekends and eating poorly. We kind of talked about this a little bit last week in our podcast, talking about our personal struggles a little bit. We were definitely getting a little loose on the weekends.
Are hard. The weekends are really hard.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you.
No, absolutely. But if we're just like consistently taking off on the weekends and we're expecting fat loss, you may be essentially if you were super perfectly on point Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then maybe half of Friday, but then, you know what? I made plans last minute to go to happy hour and go out to dinner with my coworkers Friday night. So now, you know what? I don't feel as motivated. So I'm kind of giving up on Friday. And then Saturday, I already screwed up last night. So now I'm just going to kind of eat whatever I want today on Saturday. And then, oh man, now I'm feeling kind of gross on Sunday. I'm feeling bad about myself. But you know what? Diet starts back again tomorrow. So I'm just going to enjoy myself again today. Guess what? That's 3 out of 7 days that we kind of just didn't probably make the best choices. We probably overconsumed calorically because we felt restricted Monday through Thursday. And so guess what? That's basically 54% of the week.
57.
Man, I'm so good at math. I am on point today. But that's, 57% of the week that you were on point. That right there should be eye-opening for people because
go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say they tend to think that, I was just a little bit off for, just the weekend. It was just 2 days. But the reality is it was really more like 3 days. And it was basically it's not so much of the binary on my diet or off my diet. It's more of the extent to which we kind of get loose. And I think just generally people, if they are being very restrictive Monday through Thursday, because they're I'm going to lose weight, then they're going to be just as loose. Crazy, just as loose as they were restrictive.
Right.
And that's where you get that ping pong effect, which is very detrimental to your metabolism for one, and is absolutely going to prohibit any fat loss from happening.
I mean, you have to be realistic too. You can't expect 100% results when you're putting in 57% of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Next on my list is fasting as long as you can through the day and then eating everything in sight at nighttime. This one's really, really common. This is one that I used to do back in the day where it was all right, if I know that, maybe I'm going to have a more fun meal tonight, then I'm just going to not eat all day long. I'm going to go as long as I can, really push my willpower to the max. And then I'm just going to kind of relax and enjoy myself tonight. But the reality is we always pretty much end up way over consuming. And it's not just as simple as how many calories you're eating over the course of the day that's going to affect your fat loss journey. It's also just the way that you're treating your gut health, the way that you're treating your metabolism. And if you're going all day long without eating, you are just having these surges of cortisol because your body is being put in this stressful state where it's thinking, I don't know when my next meal is. I need to be, running on just the stored glucose right now. I need to be pushing that cortisol to make sure that we can still keep going. And then you get this big meal where you're going to have this big dump of insulin, which is really going to tell your body, okay, let me store this now as fat for the next time that I am going without food. And you're just going to kind of end up in this cycle where, especially for women who are very, very sensitive hormonally, you're going to find yourself struggling to lose fat no matter how many calories you're eating that over the course of that day, essentially.
Yeah, it goes back to the consistency thing that we talked about.
Yeah. And let's be honest, we probably don't make the most nutrient-dense, best decisions when we've been like not eating all day. Yeah. So that's a big one. Almost through my list of don'ts, but a couple more here. And the next one is stealing bites of your kids' food without tracking them. Moms, don't mean to target you here, but you know that this is happening.
Being called out.
I can imagine that this would be a tough one for a lot of women. And the reality is, like, it's okay to have those bites, but let's track them. Let's not pretend like, oh, that didn't actually happen. It's just a little bite, because those little bites, licks, tastes, those are going to add up over the course of time, and they can make the difference on whether or not you lose fat. My last don't to speeding up fat loss is don't decide what you want to eat once you're hungry.
What's the saying? It's like, don't go into a grocery store when you're hungry. Is that a saying? Or did I just make that up?
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily like a saying, but
it's a great tip, I think.
It's a tip, yeah. It's definitely, I think, really good advice. Don't go into a grocery store when you're hungry.
It's a saying.
Sure. Don't go to like a party with what's it called? Like just like a spread of food, a buffet spread when you're hungry. Like, don't put yourself in these situations where you're around a lot of food when you're hungry, because then we're really going to be thinking with our stomach and not our brain. And so like, I find that a lot of people do this, not even necessarily in those situations, but more so of like, don't have really much preparation in advance for like what or how they're going to eat. And they just kind of like go with the flow. But the reality is, if it's like, okay, I'll figure out what I'm going to eat when I get there. And now it's like, okay, now I'm really, really hungry. Now I could just literally eat anything and everything in sight. And now I eat really fast. And now I'm over consuming. Like, you're going to end up in a bad spot for your fat loss goals, essentially. So that is my list of don'ts. Now let's talk about the do's. How do you speed up fat loss? Yeah, what do I don't even know how to make that joke.
What's the joke? I don't know what the joke is. What do you do?
What you do. This is
why we're not comedians.
Yeah, this is what you do to lose fat loss.
All right.
To lose fat loss. I'm struggling. All right, let's just go into our do's, how to speed up fat loss here. So, number 1, have a strategy made for your life.
If you don't plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody's life is different. The demands of your life are different. The demands on your time are different. Your personality is different. Your metabolism is different. So everybody needs a little bit of a different strategy. This is why you struggle to lose fat by just Googling around and just following different advice on social media and just like finding out what other people are doing and trying to imitate them. What works for other people is not necessarily going to be what works for you. Every single person is different. Every single person needs a strategy designed for them. So it really comes down to making a strategy that's going to work for you in your life.
And I think in the long run, it comes back to bite you in the butt, because you try all these different approaches that are for other people, and then you're like, it doesn't work for me. I can't do this. It's too hard. And then you lose the motivation and the confidence in yourself. Whereas, again, if you do the right things for you, for your body, your schedule, your routines, and it actually works, then you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this before? It's like, and that's what preparation and a little bit of strategy, I think, can make a difference.
Exactly. Next on my list is habit tracking. So really encourage you that you do habit track. We work with our clients a lot on this. We have some different methodologies of doing so to figure out kind of what works for each person's personality. But if you aren't tracking something, like, this is why we also like to track our food. But if we aren't tracking our habits, we're probably not going to develop new habits very effectively. And fat loss, very simply, does require sometimes changing certain habits. Because if we've been kind of living with certain habits and that's been allowing us to gain weight over the course of time or just not lose weight, then we may have to make some adjustments to those habits in order to have a different outcome, a different result, essentially.
What are some habits that you would recommend people track?
Steps, like how, are we walking? Habits like a bedtime routine or a morning routine. Habits, it really just depends on the person. Yeah, like water. So it can be specific habits around that of like maybe a simple habit of let's make sure that we bring a water bottle with us to work if that's something that you currently aren't doing. Like, it can really depend on the person, but we just have to start from where they are and build habits that are going to just move them in the direction of their goals.
That lifestyle change, essentially.
Exactly. Next on my list of do's, course correct quickly when things aren't working. So this one is big. Like I already mentioned, different people are going to need different approaches to be able to lose fat effectively. So if you are following one approach, if you're kind of going down one course and you're not seeing the outcomes you want from it, we kind of have to just like not give up on ourselves. We have to just keep recognizing that this is just data. Failure is feedback. You're not failing. You're just getting more feedback on what does and doesn't work for you. We have to change our course. We have to course correct quickly and keep moving forward with the same level of enthusiasm and just focus towards our goals. Next on the list, setting a water goal and hitting your water goal each day. So we kind of already talked about this one, but
no big deal. I've got my jug right here. Shout out to Yeti if they want to sponsor us.
Yeah. But water really is super, super important for fat loss for many reasons. So that's a big one. Eating protein and fruit or veggies with every meal. This is a really simple rule that people can kind of lean on, especially if you aren't tracking your macros or tracking your calories. This alone could help you probably start to lose some fat, kind of depending on where you're starting from. Just focusing on, okay, do I have a protein source? Do I have a fruit and or veggie source with every single meal? It's going to help make sure that you're getting your body what it needs.
I think the other thing too, not to go off too much of a tangent, but when you're prioritizing protein at every single meal, for me specifically, it helps me, one, stay full longer, but then two, it helps with my cravings, right? Because a lot of foods that are not the most nutrition rich are going to be full of carbs and full of fats and all that stuff, right? So when I prioritize protein, it helps me make better decisions, helps me stay full longer, and it works so much better.
Yeah, protein digests slower than carbs, but protein is less calorically dense than fats. So it's kind of like the favorable macro for when we're aiming for fat loss, essentially. Follow the 80-20 rule. This is another big do. We talk about this one a lot. Let's aim for 80% of our calories to come from nutrient-dense whole foods and 20% of our calories to come from fun foods, treat foods, like have the cupcake. It's not to say that you have to have the apple over the cupcake, but let's fit that into 20% of our day, not 50% or 80% of our day. Next on the list, eat at least 3 meals per day. So notice, you guys, I'm slipping in here a lot of things that could be just like simple, essentially like, I don't want to say rules because I don't like having rules around nutrition, but you could use these as guidelines for a fat loss journey without even tracking macros, essentially. Like if we're having, we're following the 80-20 rule, we're eating at least 3 meals per day. We're eating protein and fruit or veggies at every meal. Like you're going to probably be making a lot better decisions than you were previously. And you're probably going to notice that your metabolism speeds up and that you're actually starting to lean out over time.
I think that's a good point for all the people that are like, oh my gosh, do I have to track this? Do I have to, do this or whatever? But it's like, no, you don't. You just have to make better choices. How do we do that? It's little things like this.
Yeah, exactly. It's not binary in the sense of like you have to do these things if you want to lose fat. It's a spectrum, and it depends on kind of where you're starting at on the spectrum. If you're already tracking macros, you're already doing a lot of the things we're talking about, and you're like, I need to lose fat faster, I need to see better results, then you're probably going to have to like really cross off everything on this list. But if you're currently doing none of these things and you've maybe never tracked macros, like just starting with a couple of these things is going to make a huge difference for you. So kind of along the same lines, but next on this list, eat every 3 to 4 hours, except for overnight, of course. I don't want you waking up to eat every 3 to 4 hours.
2 in the morning, it's like, I got to get my snack in.
Yeah, like aim for kind of like a 12-hour overnight break from eating. So if you finish eating at 8, maybe eat your breakfast at 8 a.m. That can be a good kind of rule of thumb to follow to give your digestion a break overnight. If you are dealing with some hormonal imbalances, we may want to actually tighten that up a little bit more to make sure that you're giving your body fuel first thing in the morning to help support cortisol. But that being said, eating every 3 to 4 hours throughout the day will help regulate blood sugar. It'll help with cravings, and it'll help with fat loss. Next on my list, incorporate all foods you love in your diet. So kind of along the same lines of that 80-20 rule, let's really make sure that 20% is absolutely including the things that maybe you previously thought you couldn't have if you wanted to lose weight. By telling yourself that you can't have something, you're going to start to feel restricted. You're going to start to kind of give in. You're going to start to feel guilty when you do give in, and you are absolutely going to hold yourself back from losing fat.
Especially during the summertime when we have, trips, beach vacations, all that stuff coming up. I think that's the way to actually stay on track without blowing things out of the water kind of thing.
Yeah. Like our clients talk about how incredibly unrestrictive it feels to lose fat when they go through our processes of really getting their metabolism in a good spot and really developing habits that work with their lifestyle. It should not feel restrictive to lose body fat. There is going to be a tiny bit of restriction, like more than you might normally have, but it should not feel like, oh, this is miserable. This is so hard. I don't know how long I can do this for. Like it really should not feel that way at all. So next on the list, have a plan for your workouts. So we talked about how a don't was being very inconsistent with our workouts. So a do is have a plan for your workouts, both when you're going to work out, how you're going to work out, what you're doing. Ideally, if you want to have the most impactful fat loss results and you want to actually lose fat, not just lose weight, you want to look lean and toned and tight, then you're going to want to work out the most effective way possible for your body. So you need a plan. Don't be like deciding that day, what kind of workout am I going to do? Let me find something on Instagram. Let me come up with something in the moment.
Or a few minutes prior to you working out. I think that's what a lot of people do too.
Yeah. And that's going to make it even harder to be consistent because now you just have more barriers to entry. Now you're trying to figure out, well, not only like when am I going to work out or like trying to convince myself to get to the gym or get my equipment out, but now I have to also figure out what I'm going to do. Like that's honestly a lot of work when you're already tired and exhausted from life. So definitely I recommend like this can be even just something as simple as like when you work with a coach to where they can just tell you what workouts to do. Gosh, it takes so much of the thought out of it. It makes things so much easier for people. Next, take ownership of where you're at and where you're going. This one is big. Yes, if we're trying to lose fat, we have to be adults and we have to take ownership for where we're at and where we're going, what's going on in our lives, where we might be not being as effective and as efficient with our habits and our goals as possible, and truly just looking at things with a neutral lens and just kind of like almost looking at yourself like as if you were like you yourself were in some kind of like science experiment, and then you were looking at yourself as if like you were the scientist just watching and observing and gathering new data, new feedback, and like, okay, let me change this variable. Okay, now I see how that affected things. Let me adjust this variable, and just keep looking at it this way rather than this lens that people tend to take on of like, oh, this didn't work. I'm failing. I'm the worst. It's not going to ever be possible for me. I'm never going to lose weight. Like when we bring so much just like negative point of view to what's happening, we're going to absolutely hold ourselves back for sure.
Yeah. I mean, one of the best things I think that you kind of uncovered today is like, if you're only tracking, or you're only on track Monday through Thursday, that's 57%, right? So being realistic and be like, oh, that's why I'm not doing, it's not that you're, not able to do this or you're just not cut out to lose the weight. It's just more so the approach that we're taking isn't the most sustainable for you to get the results you want.
Yeah, exactly. Next on my list of do's to speed up fat loss is do make clear goals for yourself. Now, we work very closely with our clients to be consistently updating and refining our goals over the course of our journey, because if we don't know where we're going, how are we going to effectively get where we want to go? You're not going to be able to ever, arrive at any destination if you don't know what the destination is. If you're just getting in your car and you're like, I'm just going to start driving and see where I end up, you're probably not going to end up where you want to be. So you have to have a destination to be able to figure out what is my path to getting there going to look like. So make some clear goals. Next, have accountability to stay on track. I mean, this one's huge, whether it's, of course, working with a coach, I think is the most optimal form of accountability through a process like fat loss. But sometimes, even just working with like a friend, getting an accountability buddy in. Can you join a community? Like we see the effects of our community with our clients. Like even if I just removed our coaches and just had these women continue to support each other in the community we have, women would still continue to get incredible results, because that's the power of a community where you can have accountability. So have accountability. That'll keep you on track for sure. My last do to speed up fat loss, do your best, then let it rest, keep moving forward. That's the one I wanted to end this on, because for some people, these lists can feel overwhelming. You might be like, oh my gosh, I have to do all of this and I have to not do all of that if I want to see fat loss. Not necessarily. It depends on where you're at and where you're starting from, like we said before. So do your best. pick out a few things from this list of do's, a few things from the list of don'ts, and focus on those. Focus on doing the do's and not doing the don'ts, and just keep working on making those 1% improvements day over day, week over week, and you're absolutely going to get where you want to go. You're absolutely going to see fat loss come faster than it was before.
I like the keep moving forward part, because sometimes your best might be 20%. Your best might be a 10-minute workout. Your best might be a walk. But like you said, giving yourself a little bit of grace and be like, you know what, tomorrow's a new day. We're going to, go kick some ass and keep moving forward. That's what makes that sustainable approach.
Yeah. And even if you are working on these things and fat loss is not speeding up quite yet, that's okay. Keep moving forward. Sometimes we have to just keep chipping away at it, and then you're going to see this big whoosh effect where things really kick in, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I stuck with this. I'm so glad I kept going. I'm so happy to be where I'm here now. Yeah. So absolutely. But last thing I wanted to leave you guys with, like,
can I hit him with the
woo? Yeah, what Omar alluded to earlier. So, this weekend as we're recording, but it would be the previous Saturday as this episode is released, is Omar's birthday. He's getting old, turning 32. I'm going to be trading him in for a newer model soon. 32 is the new 21,
right? Isn't that what they say?
No. That's 31 is the new 21.
Well, listen, 32 is the new 22 then.
Every year is the new 21 for you. But no, yeah, so it's Omar's birthday this weekend, and it's going to be my birthday in a few weeks. And so we were really kind of taking a step back, and some kind of a little fun fact about us. We're not really great at getting each other gifts. We kind of just gave up a few years ago in terms of we stopped giving each other Christmas gifts, stopped giving each other Valentine's Day gifts, and we've held on still each year of giving each other birthday gifts. But we're kind of at this point where it's so hard to give each other gifts because we're around each other 24/7. We share finances because we work together in the business. And so it's we kind of if we really want something, we'll just kind of get it outside of these special occasions. And when we do want to give gifts, we're typically I want to give experiences. I want to we give each other
travel,
trips, different things like that. We tend to use those as our gifts to each other. So this year we were kind of thinking about it, and we decided, you know what, we actually, instead of giving ourselves gifts via a trip, we want to give back. We want to give back to you guys. So we decided to take $15,000 and give this out in the form of scholarships to our premier one-on-one coaching program. So we're going to be giving out a full ride scholarship so you can absolutely get into our 90-day metabolic reset method for free, not paying a single dime, and get the incredible results that you see our clients getting every single day, every single week, if you follow us on Instagram and you see all the things that we share. So, if you're at that place where you're I want to, identify the root cause of why I'm struggling to lose weight. Why is my metabolism slowing down? Why is this so hard for me? I want to be guided step by step towards losing, 10, 20, 30 pounds and actually being able to keep it off for good. I want to do this way in a way that's fun and enjoyable and that actually takes my metabolism, hormones, and mindset into account so it can truly be a lifestyle for me. Then this is for you. This is your opportunity. You could win a full ride scholarship, or you could win a partial scholarship and really get this opportunity to join our program at really in a way you've never been able to have the opportunity to join before. So if you are interested in that, all you have to do is fill out the scholarship application. I will be reviewing them all personally and working with our team to pick out our winner. So super, super excited about this. Check out the application in the show notes. Get that filled out. It should only take you a couple minutes. And then we'll be essentially keeping the application open through this Friday, and then choosing our winner
What's the date?
Saturday,
Friday,
June 1st.
June 1st. There you go.
Saturday, June 1st. Friday, May 31st. So get your application in. I'm super excited to review it and hopefully, get to know you a little bit better and possibly be able to welcome you into our program.
I'm going to give one quick tip to our listeners in particular. If you've made it this far and you've listened, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about the scholarship. Here's one thing that really makes a difference when it comes to these submissions. Sometimes people hold back and they're like, hey, I want to do it because XYZ, right? But the people that really shine, the people that the team really rally around are the people who go above and beyond and just describe their situation and explain why you're so deserving of this, why this is such a big deal for you, why this is so important to you.
What would it do for you to be able to kind of get this opportunity?
Story. So don't be afraid to, share and really describe in detail, Vanessa said, how this is going to change your life. those are usually the applications that our team's like, oh my God, we have to help this person. We really need to go to bat for this person. And those are the people that end up really being one of the finalists. So keep that in mind. Like I said, share your story, share your why, share how this is going to help. And I promise our team will take a look at it. We'll rally around it and we will do our best to help.
Yeah. And like we've done this before, we've given out scholarships before, but we've never given out this much in scholarships before. That's why, we're like, all right, we're going to do this for our birthdays together where it's going to feel good. We're going to be giving back. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity here for you to win a piece of the pie, if not the whole pie. So,
yeah. And I'm going to call out the people too that are like, have been sitting in the sidelines. They're like, I don't know. Should I do this? Should I not do this? There is literally now no reason as to why you shouldn't even apply, right? Because like you don't have anything to lose. The only thing you have to lose is your time. But other than that, it's like if you're interested in doing this, if you're interested in really transforming, this is the opportunity that you've been waiting for. So seriously, don't sit out on this one. Take advantage of it. And if anything, just give it a shot. Who knows what will happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm super excited to review your application. But thank you guys so much for listening to this episode.
Oh, I'm so excited for this. This is my favorite part.
Yeah, and send it to a friend too if you feel like somebody else might benefit from the application or the scholarship as well. Like, send it to other people.
Help us spread the word.
Yeah. So, if you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor, give us a 5-star rating and review, and make sure you hit subscribe if you're not already, so you never miss another episode.